Hello, you haven't heard me before, but I'm Jaybird. I'm into this indie show which you should totally watch called Mission Shutdown. To summarize the plot, it's about this girl, Evelyn, who lives in 2056. The world looks the same as 2026, but there are AIs walking amongst the regular humans. These AIs can go rogue and start killing people. This is where Evelyn comes in. Evelyn is an illegal vigilante who kills these robots, separate from an actual secret society that kills them legally. She gets caught by Blake, who actually works for the secret agency. Blake takes pity on Evelyn and practically adopts her, deciding to train her on how to properly kill these AIs. Evelyn eventually comes across her old friend, Katie, and convinces Blake to let her live with them. That's who this theory is about, Katie! But, since you read the title. I was re-watching recently and found something strange. I noticed how Katie acts off. First, let's take a look at her costume. Looks cool, right? Well, what's really shown throughout it? She has a lab coat, some antennae, and... Wait, how is that tail moving? Does Katie have some sort of secret mechanism inside her suit that allows that to move? It wouldn't make sense. Her suit is also weirdly scientific looking. Now, you could argue the fact that Katie's dad makes these bots, which explains both her costume and her strange interest and almost empathy she has for the AIs. However, Katie has repeatedly stated to be very against what her father does, so this wouldn't make much sense. What's more likely is that Katie's tail is connected to her. Let me explain. Evelyn says in the pilot how the AIs can walk and talk exactly like normal humans, just like Katie. This is why Katie hasn't been found out by the secret agency Blake works for. Additionally, we know Katie's dad makes these robots that Evelyn and Blake kill. It could be very likely that Katie's dad made Katie. We never hear about Katie's mom, not from Katie nor Evelyn. We also know from Moon that AIs get hostile when being called mistakes. From what Katie's implied about her relationship with her dad, perhaps Katie and her dad had a falling out that made Katie volatile. But why doesn't she kill like the other robots? Good question that you definitely did not ask. It's because she wants to help the bots in whatever they plan to do by wiping out humanity. In episode 5, Rises the Moon, we find out what project Katie mentioned in A Little Help, making her own robot. Supposedly this is to one-up her dad, but I think otherwise. Assuming Katie is actually an AI herself, it would be probable that she'd try to prove that not all AIs are killing machines. How would someone as scientific as her do something like that? Easy. Gathering evidence. One passive robot, it wouldn't be enough to rid the entire world of their suspicions, but multiple? The more evidence, the more believable your claim. Katie making Moon could be her trying to gain evidence for what she wants to prove. All of that is fine and dandy, but what really makes Katie an AI? Sure, she has ties to the AIs being made, but that isn't really evidence. My real evidence for this is how Katie acts. When Evelyn and Katie are trying to find a robot, the first thing Evelyn says is, look for anyone who's completely still. You know who was completely still just before that? Katie. Even after, when Evelyn praises her, Katie stays still. Her tail doesn't even move like before when we first saw it. The animators take time in trying to make the characters have even subtle movements when they speak, so it's pretty unlikely that this was just a creative decision. Additionally, how does Katie react when Evelyn kills a robot? She covers her eyes. This could be just because Katie doesn't like seeing murder, but I think that it's because she doesn't like seeing her own kind killed. Who would seriously watch someone get murdered with a straight face, let alone willingly? And while by that logic it doesn't make sense that Katie then just takes the body and remakes it into Moon, we've also been shown Katie's major disdain for her dad, and this entire plan of hers is seemingly just to prove him wrong about something. If you're that determined about something, especially if you're seemingly not that empathetic like the robots have been implied to be throughout the series thus far, it makes sense that you do some immoral actions trying to prove yourself correct. I'm simply saying, it's not unlikely that Katie would do something like this, especially with how determined she is to prove her dad wrong. Overall, Moon's creation makes sense, despite the moral implications. On the topic of Moon's creation, something always irked me about the way Katie acts during it. She seems strangely knowledgeable about how Moon works, right? She immediately knows how to calm down Moon after accidentally calling them a mistake, despite having seemingly just now interacted with a bot. This could be due to empathy, yes, but what about what happens after? Janie gives Katie a theory about why Moon crashed out, and instead of counterfeiting it like someone as scientifically driven as Katie's been shown to be, she just accepts it. Doesn't point out how out of the blue that theory is, doesn't try to find a more logical reason. She just calls Janie smart. Going back to Moon now, once they're calm, Katie asks Moon what they want to be called. What normal person would really do that, especially when you've only seen the bad side to these bots? Why would you give them that much autonomy? Because it's the autonomy that Katie wants. She wants to make the world see that these AIs aren't just killing machines, like I mentioned before. Now, if you watch the same theorists as I do, you're probably thinking, Jay, where's the meat of this? Where's that one damning piece of evidence that you've saved until now that completely subscribes me to your theory? Speaking of, you should totally subscribe to my channel too. Well, dear viewer who definitely didn't think that, I do have that. Katie's eyes. We're told in episode 3, Bugged Out, that Katie used to have glasses. However, Katie states that she simply got eye surgery. Eye surgery? That doesn't make much sense. There is a surgery called LASIK which can allow one to see without glasses, but that costs $1,500 to $5,000 per eye. And I understand that this theory takes place in the future, but that just means it would increase more. From 2026 to 2056, this surgery could cost around $6,817 to $7,809. I can read! This surgery could cost around $6,817 to $7,889 when this series takes place. Even for someone as seemingly successful as Katie's father, that is an insane cost to just get rid of some stupid glasses. And that $6,800 to $7,800 is still per eye. What is more likely that happened was that Katie's model was simply updated by her father to keep it inconspicuous, or that Katie used to be human and was turned into a robot by her dad. But that's just a theory. A Mission Shutdown theory. And from what I've seen, the first Mission Shutdown theory. Seriously, you guys should check out this series. I'll link the creator in the description at The Ultimate Mia here on YouTube. That's all for now. Have a cookie and a good day.